Talking about the divisional round of the playoffs, some of the things that we learned that you want to see applied for Washington going into next year. I think that's a good exercise at times, and something that I think teams do as well. Something that's very real is you watch these playoffs, you see what the trends are, and see how you can build to either be just like that or to combat whatever you're seeing. And I think one thing that you've seen in this playoffs, look at the teams that are left. I mean, when you look at the AFC Championship, you've got the Broncos and the Patriots. And I don't know that you'd look at the Patriots defense as spectacular throughout the season, but they're playing really well in the playoffs. The Broncos defense has been really, really good all year. Those are defensive-led football teams, at least so far in the postseason for New England as well, right? Like, they have won their games on their defense more so than Drake May going and making plays. And the Broncos have been led by their defense all year. The question was, will Bo Nix make enough plays to go win football games? And now he's going to be out, so they're going to be leaned on even more. And you look at the NFC side, Seahawks, they've been led by their defense all year. And the Rams, they haven't necessarily been led by their defense, but they have a really good defense as well. I think defense is paramount, and it has been paramount in this playoffs. And I think Washington, if they want to get to the mountaintop, they're going to have to improve that defensive side of the football. And it doesn't even necessarily rely solely on talent, because some of these defenses, not like they're the most talented schemes or teams on the defensive side. It's about how they're scheming these guys and being able to work. Because even the Bears last night, they were a team that wasn't led by their defense, but their defense played really well last night. And you've got to find a way to make the most out of your players on the defensive side of the football. And I don't know that Washington did that this year for sure. They definitely didn't. 800-636-1067. Let's get out to Rick in North Carolina. Rick, what's going on?
Hey, good morning, Phil. How you doing?
Doing great, man.
I'm doing good. Yeah, about the games over the weekend. They were good games, man. The defenses were good on both sides. Houston, I could see the frustration on D'Amico Ryan's face. He was like, man, we were extra opportunity with that great defense. And I don't know, CJ Stroud looks like he's lost confidence, and I'm not sure. He didn't look comfortable playing in the cold, that's for sure, in 2 games in 1 week. So that was one thing, but, hopefully he can turn it around. Now, with Sean McDermott getting fired in Buffalo, do you think he comes into play as a defensive coordinator if he doesn't get a head coaching job with us?
Yeah, appreciate the phone call, Rick. It's an interesting name. You'd have to continue to wait, because I would assume that he's going to get head coaching jobs now, or at least interviews now. There's going to be some interest for him to come and take over whatever regime you were previously working at, because there's crappy teams that are going to need a culture change, and I think Sean McDermott can provide that. So you're going to have to continue to wait. It's more and more waiting. That's kind of the thing that we were talking about the other day on G&D is the offensive coordinator hire was quick. The defensive coordinator hire has taken some time, but I think part of it is you're going for some of these big fish. Sean McDermott would be right in that realm as well, where you're going to have to wait some time, but I don't see how he couldn't be in the mix. He's definitely somebody I consider. Mike's in D.C. Mike, what's going on?
Hey, happy Monday and MLK Day.
You as well, man.
Yeah, I just a couple of thoughts. I was pretty frustrated watching the Buffalo Bills game for a couple of reasons. One is they weren't calling anything throughout the game, and then a couple of tic-tac interference calls at the end. And obviously, I'm a believer, watch football for 30 years. If your knee's in the ground, it's catch. It doesn't matter really what happens after that. So I thought they got kind of screwed. But my thinking is this, and I don't understand why the NFL has not implemented the 15-yard interference call, because these calls are so devastating that if you're going 50, 60 yards and you're counting on a referee to make a pretty inconsistent calls, I would love for the NFL to implement that interference call. But that being said, pretty shocking McDermott got fired. I kind of think he had his opportunities. Talking about the Commanders, if you look at what Seattle's done, their defensive line is nasty as it gets.
So good.
And, if you add in a good defensive line that is, able to stop the run, put pressure on the quarterback, and have a pretty decent offensive line, and you got Sam Darnold as a quarterback who I think Seattle's going to win the Super Bowl at this point. So I would love to see the Commanders really add a few pieces over the offseason. I do think there's some growth that Jayden Daniels needs to do. He didn't look great this year. I understand he was injured. So I'm really hoping he has a third year that kind of shows the maturity. But I wanted to get your thoughts on sort of the NFL implementing this interference that doesn't change the entire game, because they called 2 calls at the end of the Denver game that, to be honest, a couple of the Denver corners could have got interference calls earlier, and it ruined the game. And it was a great game, win or lose Buffalo, but at the end, it was a very sour taste in the mouth with the, hey, your knee's on the ground, they both have possession, that's a catch, the last 30, 40 years. I don't understand how they can not even review that and go over to a monitor to double-check that big a call. But on top of that, to call sort of I felt like tic-tac, at least one of the two, that just ends the game. And if you had the 15-yard implementation, at least it gives Buffalo a fighting chance. So anyway, just wanted to throw it out there and see what your thoughts were.
Appreciate it, Mike. Yeah, I think so. Real quick on the catch interception thing, I can completely understand if you think that that's a catch. I lean interception because I don't know that he truly ever completes the process by the rules that they have, where you've got to survive the ground, quote unquote. And surviving the ground means hitting the ground, and also while you're rolling over, maintaining possession. If that were something where McMillan were not a part of that play, ripping the ball out, and Cooks were to roll over, and as he half rolls over, the ball pops out, I think we all would agree that that would be ruled incomplete. If that is the case, then I think you have to go with interception in that case. But then you also go on the flip side and say, well, it's not the same as a guy falling down and half rolling and the ball popping free, because you've got a defender ripping the ball out, which is totally different than hitting the ground and the ball popping free because it was loose. So I can completely understand either side, which maybe isn't the best radio, but that's kind of where I'm at. I get both sides. I would lean interception, but I can definitely understand anybody looking at it and say, how the heck is that not a catch? I get that. To his point about pass interference, I think it's interesting because I do think that it worked out fine in terms of how things did end up playing out. The first pass interference on the drive for Denver, there was also a very bad roughing the passer from Joey Bosa. So even if you take out that pass interference, there's still a 15-yard penalty that was going to get tacked on for Denver, and they're going to get a first down there. Because I would agree that one was pretty ticky-tack. There's a little bit of a grab of the arm, but that's pretty typical, especially for playoff football, especially for a game that they allowed the guys to play. That one was a little more ticky-tack. The second one that got them way down in the field goal range, I don't think that was ticky-tack at all. I think that was clearly PI. I think a guy going up for the football, gets hit early, brings his arm down. Like Tre'Davious White, I understand his frustration. They've been allowed to play all game, but I don't think that was something that should not have been called. I think that was pretty egregious. Or I wouldn't say egregious, but I think that was pretty obvious that that was PI. And so I didn't have as much of an issue with that one. 800-636-1067, though. To finish up his point, though, about the 15-yard pass interference thing, I would be interested in that. I think the college game has now opened up the ability with the 15-yard pass interference being the max that if you're beat, you can pull somebody down. So I don't know that I always love that. But at the same point, I do hate that strategy in the NFL has become let's underthrow every deep ball and not actually try to complete the pass. But let's just underthrow everything. And if it's not caught, we'll fight through the defender and get PI and we'll get a 35, 40-yard penalty. I don't like that. I mean, legitimately, I don't know why more teams, say you come out with the Kansas City Chiefs 13 seconds, instead of doing what they were able to do and just march it right down the field, why would you not come out and just heave it? Even like last night when you saw Matt Stafford at times, or if you're Caleb Williams, or one of these quarterbacks that has a big arm, if you're in a situation where there's not a lot of time on the clock, and I'm not real worried about throwing an interception if that happens, why wouldn't you just run 4 verts and throw the ball down the field and hope that you can get a PI? I don't like that that's a legitimate strategy that teams will sometimes employ. Haven't seen it as much recently this year, but you've definitely seen that in the past, and I hate that. I hate that you can just go, screw it, let's throw it up and hope that we can get bailed out by a penalty. I hate that. Play football. Try to complete the pass. One of my least favorite things that we've seen in the evolution of the way the NFL has been played is teams understand the PI penalty and quarterbacks no longer even try to lead their receivers down the field. It's seemingly taught, throw it at the receiver, and if anything, slightly underthrow him, because then I can at least fight back through the defender and get a PI. Versus if I'm trying to throw a goal ball down the sideline, lead the guy for an 80-yard touchdown. Now it's seemingly, let me underthrow it a little bit. They can fight through it, and at worst, I'm going to be able to get a 30-yard penalty. I don't like that. So I can see both sides of it. I personally probably would not implement the 15-yard, but I do think that could fix some of the problems. I think it's just more so, I don't know how you fix the pass interference, frankly, because I do hate the idea of just underthrowing deep balls all the time and you're rewarding offensive players when a defender's in perfect position, but he's not able to get his head around. Sometimes that's an unrealistic expectation for a defender. Oh, he's got to get his head around to play the football. Yeah, okay. Have you played corner before? Have you been able to run stride for stride with a guy, and then all of a sudden you have to turn around and play the football? That's an unrealistic expectation at times, even though the rules are... I don't know exactly how you fix it, but I don't know that you'll ever see it go to the 15-yard penalty in the NFL. 800-636-1067. While we're at it, though, talking about some lessons that we learned from this divisional round and some things you want to see implemented for Washington, can I talk about a position that I desperately want to see filled, and I have been advocating for this guy to end up in D.C., and I think it really makes me want him even more? I want a safety that can play downhill and will tackle well. And I'm talking Caleb Downs. I'm talking a guy that can be a difference maker at every level of a defense. I watched this weekend and saw guys from 4 different teams, all safeties used in different ways, and I would love to see Caleb Downs used in all these variety of ways. I saw Brisker playing deep last night, coming down and playing the run when he would recognize it, getting downhill, bringing the thump, playing good in coverage deep. He's going to be a free agent, by the way. He'll be interesting to keep an eye on. Cameron Kitchens played really well for the Rams last night. Not afraid to come down and tackle. We also saw Cam Curl make a play, former Washington Commander, making plays. Jalen Petrie is someone that has really changed that Texans defense, being able to use him in all sorts of roles. He was drafted as a safety. He played a lot of safety, and now he's more so their nickel back, being able to use him in different ways, whether it's blitzing off the edge. You saw him come down and make a big play in the run game, not afraid to stick his nose in there and get after the running back, also able to cover well. And we've seen a guy that has changed Seattle's defense entirely, Nick Emanwari. A big dude. They play him in the nickel. They'll blitz him off the edge. They'll use him almost as another linebacker because they want to play nickel. He's kind of... they play nickel as their base now, where they've only got the 2 linebackers, but Nick Emanwari is like a third linebacker / safety. You kind of use one of those hybrid guys, and they found their own Kyle Hamilton, because that's exactly kind of the role that they use him in. He's probably a little more mobile, maybe not as smart as how Kyle Hamilton can play the game, and maybe not as great against the run at times, but Emanwari is probably a little bit better in coverage at times than Kyle Hamilton, but he is so good. I would love to see someone in this defense that can do some of those things. The safety position. I'd love to see them have some impact makers there, some playmakers, some guys that can help you out in every aspect of the football game, and they didn't have that this year at all from the safety position. Quan Martin really struggled in coverage. I like what some of the guys could bring you in reserve at times. Like I've always loved the attitude that Revo brings when he comes off the bench and has to step in, but he's just not a starting caliber safety. He's a great reserve and a great special teamer. He's not a starting caliber safety in my mind, but I like some of the attitude that he brings when he comes into the game. Will Harris, I actually liked what they were able to do with him when he was on the football field, but he struggled this year at times and was injured for a majority of the season. Jeremy Chin, when he was with this team last year, I liked his ability to play down in the box, use him in different ways because of his size. But I would love to see impact players at the safety position, which is just something that this team hasn't had in quite some time. They haven't had difference-making safeties, either at the free safety position where they're playing the center field and they're playing against the pass, or strong safety where they're getting down inside. They're getting after the run. They're that extra defender in the box. They've got to find somebody at that position that can help. And I would love Caleb Downs. I think he's the smartest football player in the draft. I think he's probably the best football player in the draft. If you can't get him, that's fine. He might be gone before you pick at 7. So if you're not able to get him, that's okay. But I would like to see them prioritize that position because I think you saw multiple times this weekend where having a guy that's not afraid to come down and hit, having a guy that can be used in a little bit of a versatile role, which, by the way, if you had a Petrie, you had an Eamon Warrior where they're playing in the nickel, that puts Mikey back on the outside where Mikey's been better. And while I think Mikey, they wanted him to be in the nickel, I just don't know that he has what it takes. I think when you look at how Mikey plays best, it's when he can have eyes and can play with his mind and allow his head to make the plays versus I think he can be a little bit limited physically in terms of having to cover some of these elite of the elite. Now, one of the things that opened my eyes that maybe I'm a little wrong in that evaluation is when he was going stride for stride with Jameson Williams down the field in the divisional round last year. But I haven't seen that type of play in quite some time. He's a playmaker. He's someone that can turn the ball over. We saw him do that once again this season, even in a down year. But I don't know that you can stick him in the nickel and expect him to go stride for stride with some of these guys. I mean, how tough is it to try to cover JSN out of the slot? How tough is it to try to cover Amon-Ra out of the slot? Now, those guys are the best of the best at it, but I don't know if Mikey is a slot defender. I would personally leave him outside. So if you got a safety that can go play in that nickel role and you can kind of move them around, if that's going to be your base defense where Caleb Downs is now in the nickel, you want to use him in that way. Or, you go to a dime package where you now can move him back to a deep safety and you can use him all over the football field. I like that versatility he would give you. But regardless, even if it's not Caleb Downs, just find some safeties that can make a difference for your defense. I think you saw the difference that good safeties can make this weekend. And like I was talking about, I think defense has been paramount and kind of been the driving force so far in this playoffs for the teams that have made it to the conference championship games. 800-636-1067 if you'd like to hop in. What are some things you took away from this weekend that you want to see Washington implement? Also, want to take a look at that 2024 quarterback draft class. I know it can be dangerous waters to wade in because so many people love to get frustrated and have animus towards the other guys in that draft class. But I do think if we can just appreciate how good that draft class is, regardless of who's better than who, I think it is impressive to see where they're at and might be one of the all-timers when they're all said and done here in a couple decades or so. 800-636-1067. Toby Altizer sitting in for B. Mitch and Finley on the Fan.